Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing Matilda by Roald Dahl. So I found out about this book from the Top 1000 list, 1000 Books to Read Before You Die by James Mustich. Now I had been looking for a copy of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory because about a year ago I was binge watching the movies. So I wanted to read the book, so I checked out the local bookstore and they did not have any of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They just had Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator or something, which I think is the sequel to that book. And also at the library, they do not have a copy of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But they did have Matilda at the bookstore, and Matilda is off the Top 1000 list, so I had to read it anyway. So I thought, I need to read it anyway, I might as well get it. I had seen the movie years ago, I guess when it first came out. I don't remember where I would have seen it because I'm not sure if I actually had a copy or not. But I definitely saw the movie at least once. I did not really remember anything about it when I read the book, so I read the book pretty much blind to what the book is about. Now, personally, that's the way I like to do it. I like to go into books blind, not knowing anything about the plot or the author or anything. But not everyone is that way, so I'm going to quickly go through a little bit of what the book is about. If you don't want to know that, if you're like me and you just want to start the book without knowing anything about it, go ahead and skip to the next chapter. So first off, I don't really want to talk too much about it. You could just check on Wikipedia, but Roald Dahl was a pretty interesting person. He was a fighter pilot in World War II, and he had quite a few interesting battles, like around the Mediterranean. Like there was one time where he got lost in Egypt, and another time I think he was in a large air battle around Greece. So it's kind of a real interesting life he had. So if you want to check out like the Wikipedia article on Roald Dahl, it's pretty interesting, so give it a read. Matilda is about a young girl. I think she is about 5 in the book, and she has really neglectful parents, almost abusive. They just want nothing to do with Matilda. They think she's stupid and just not worth anything. But she begins to teach herself to read at a very early age. And so she starts reading books, which I liked because it talks about all the books she was reading, like Charles Dickens and all this stuff. And I was like, hey, I know that book, I know that book. So that was pretty relatable for me. Generally, any kind of books about books or reading are pretty awesome. And we relate with them because, of course, since we like to read, since we're reading the book, obviously, having characters who also enjoy reading is relatable to us. So you quickly discover that Matilda is a real bright person. She's a very active reader and she's real smart, but her parents do not want to encourage her reading. They just think, why are you reading these books? You know, just watch TV with us. So the first half of the book really is about Matilda's relationship with her parents as she gets into reading and her parents don't want her reading. They become more and more opposed to it. And so what ends up happening is there's kind of a war between them where her parents are being mean, and so Matilda gets revenge in her own little creative ways. So that was all pretty fun. And then from there, the second half of the book goes into Matilda starts attending school, and the principal antagonist is the principal, who is this really mean woman. And so the second half of the book is kind of Matilda's war with the principal. So in terms of my actual thoughts for the book, I don't have a whole ton to say about the plot or characters or story or the writing so much, because it is a children's story, and children's stories I think are pretty different than regular novels. For instance, I felt the book was a bit exaggerated how mean the parents and the principal are. There is a scene, or a couple scenes, where the principal grabs students by the hair and spins them around and tosses them like a javelin. That was pretty unbelievable. And just the meanness of the parents, where Matilda is clearly a bright, smart person, but they're just like, oh, don't read books, just watch TV. That I felt was kind of exaggerated, but I get that it's for children, so exaggerating the story is kind of part of what goes into doing a children's book. So I'm not going to dock the book a star for any of that. I would personally say that Dahl did not need to have so much about the parents and principal being mean. I think just like one scene, you get the point. You get that they're a mean person. And so from there, you could go right into basically the pranks Matilda pulls or whatever. And that is what I wished the book would have had more of. These scenes where Matilda is getting back at her parents and the principal. But there's only really like 3 pranks she really pulls in the book. So I think just from that standpoint, the author could have had fewer scenes just showing the meanness of the parents and the principal, and little more scenes of Matilda getting back at them. This is also a rare book where I felt it was maybe too short. Most books I think are kind of too long, but this book I do think could have had 50 or even 100 more pages, because I would have really liked to have seen more of Matilda getting back at her parents and the principal than there was in this book. But I'm not going to dock the book any points for that. For most books I read, the question is, did I enjoy the book? But for Matilda, the bigger question is it a book that I think children would enjoy? Is it a book that should be read to children or given to children so that they could read it? And I think the answer is yes. As far as the children's books that I've read go, I've read Matilda, Wizard of Oz, Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, The Indian in the Cupboard, Charlotte's Web. I think these are all good children's stories, so I do think Matilda does belong there. I do think it would be recommended read for children. So I am going to give it 5 stars. Now, there are 2 different types of 5-star reviews for me. One is a 5-star masterpiece, like a best book ever. I don't think Matilda was one of those. I think Matilda is more a 5-star book in that I did not really see any flaws that would justify knocking a star off. Really, I think the book would probably deserve maybe about a 4-star review, because 4 stars is a book that I just liked pretty well. But again, there's nothing about the book that I could really fairly dock it a star for. So because of that, I think it deserves 5 stars. It is a book I enjoyed. I read the whole thing, and I would recommend it, especially for kids, but also adults too. If you've, for some reason, not read this book yet, I think it is a decent book to read. It's pretty short too, just about 200, 225 pages or so. So it's a pretty quick read if you are a bit behind on your 2022 reading goal, or whatever year it is by the time you watch this. It's a good book to read to add to your list, so you could say, oh, I've read this many books this year. It's only about 220 pages, so it's nice and easy. Anyway, that is about it for the review. I do still want to read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and after reading Matilda, I think I am more open to reading more from Roald Dahl. So, yeah. I think that is really the biggest judge for whether a book is good or not, is not so much just the book itself, but how willing you are to read another book from the author. If you are willing to do that, then either the book was pretty good, or you definitely see potential with the author. So I enjoyed the book. I do recommend it, especially for children. I think it would be a must read. So that is it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.